Welcome to another episode of the See Life Different podcast. My name is Zaakirah and I am your host. This podcast features women of purpose, creative women of purpose, who share stories of resilience. They all have one thing in common: the need to create and the need to save. The mission of this podcast is to inspire you, empower you, and to educate you. So today we have the honor of speaking to Emily Heck. She specializes in helping nonprofits and small business owners grow through deep rooted marketing campaigns. So that means content management, audience engagement, and she never really thought she'd been an entrepreneur. But after a toxic experience in the workplace, which I can attest to that, I've dibbled and dabbled in a 9 to 5, I've dibbled and dabbled with working with other startups. So it's all a matter of taking that leap of faith, and you create your own seat, you build your own table. So she created Evergreen Strategic in 2019. So it's literally a strategic marketing firm. So we're going to talk about how she got started in business and 3 keys to a successful fundraising marketing campaign. I'm going to bring Emily. Let's give her a virtual round of applause. Hi, Emily.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So let's go from maybe the beginning, because I love the fact that you are a Midwestern girl, right?
Of
And it's
course.
kind of popping up in the news a bit more because more people are starting to look at the Midwest. They're leaving
Mhm.
Silicon Valley, they're leaving the Big Apple, they're leaving Party City in Miami, and they're considering the Midwest. So tell me what it was like for you just growing up in the Midwest.
Sure. So I grew up about an hour south of Indianapolis, in a small town called Columbus, Indiana, which is a really unique town in that it's very much a farm town, but it also is the home of Cummins Incorporated. And so there's a lot of culture there, and we're known as an architectural hub of the Midwest. So it was kind of a unique experience growing up in a place that had, the country, the farm. I mean, I was involved in 4-H as a kid. But then, driving around town, you see these world class art pieces from these amazing artists and architects. So it was an interesting experience growing up in a world like that.
And so tell me how the name Evergreen came from. I know the term of evergreen marketing, which really basically means not depending on social media, but um, where does the green really come from? Is there any kind of correlation between the fact that, growing up around nature or things of that sort?
Yeah, so it definitely has a tie to my love of nature and love of being outdoors. But really, you mentioned at the beginning that I started my business in a time of that I was coming out of or transitioning out of a toxic workplace. And I am one that loves symbols. And so when you think of the evergreen, it, you know, it doesn't lose its color, it doesn't lose its needles, it doesn't die in the wintertime. It, continues on. And for me, that was so symbolic of starting my business because I didn't let this toxic time in my career, my professional life stop me, or even really push me backwards. I kept going and I kept standing tall, and I didn't lose my color or my needle, that kind of thing. So it was very purposeful of why I chose that. And it's probably one of the most unique questions I get a lot from clients of what does the evergreen mean?
I love that. Yeah, and it is. I love that it's a fun ploy on both the marketing terminology and your love of green.
Right.
So tell me how you got started in nonprofit world.
Yeah, so nonprofit was the first place I landed when I graduated college. And I worked for the local Boy Scout Council in Indianapolis as their
Not the
marketing
Girl
coordinator.
Scouts?
Nope, not the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts. So they had a position open, and that's where I landed. And nonprofit has always been something close to my heart. I volunteered a lot as a teenager, as a kid, and through college. And I just love how nonprofits run. They're very unique in how they run and operate. And then obviously they're mission driven organizations. I mean, who doesn't love organizations that are trying to put more good into the world? And so when I sat down when I started Evergreen and I'm like, okay, who do I really want to serve? Nonprofits was an easy place to kind of target for me because it's so natural for me to be interacting in nonprofits and spending my time talking with them and helping them. So it's really something that breathes a lot of energy into me.
I love that. Yeah, I think my first couple of marketing clients were either music artists or a nonprofit. I think there's a nonprofit that I got to volunteer with, and then
Mhm.
when I got the other side of the experience, if I'm just a volunteer, but then I'm like this, I can just tell something's missing with their evergreen funnel. So I'm like, let me pitch, to work with them. So it was an honor to work with them for 5 years because it truly, I mean, just like startup, really, it's the people that make the nonprofit keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, some of my closest friends are from when my first nonprofit. And to your point, you're with your client for 5 years, I think you said. I mean, you probably learned so much during that time because it requires be working with a nonprofit requires you to kind of hit the ground running because in a corporation they may have a social media department and a writing department and a PR department, but in a nonprofit you're doing it all, and so you're really learning, and I think that's part of the fun of it.
I love that. Now, speaking of, you didn't mention that nonprofits may or may not have a fundraising department. So, talk
Mhm.
about how just really your experience of working with a nonprofit really just uh, kind of catapulted, or really, if that was the frustration and the turning point for you to really say, okay, this is exactly what I want to focus on. So, talk about how you really knew that fundraising marketing is what you really wanted to get into.
Yeah, so that's kind of a story that I feel like I just fell into. I mean, in a lot of nonprofits, the executive director is doing the fundraising, or they may have one development director, someone focused on fundraising. So, when you're working for a smaller nonprofit or volunteering for a smaller nonprofit, it's kind of a hands-on, all hands on deck situation. And so that's kind of how I fell into it. It was an all hands on deck. And interestingly, the nonprofit I worked for full time at the time was entering into this fundraising competition here in Indianapolis. It's called Brackets for Good, and it's a March Madness basketball style fundraising tournament. And so you compete against other nonprofits to raise the most money. And then you move from week to week if you win to then getting a large cash prize that you can put back to your nonprofit. So that was really my first taste of fundraising marketing because it wasn't a we couldn't use a traditional approach. You needed a lot of donors with maybe smaller gifts rather than one donor giving a huge lump sum. And so that's where I got my first taste um, of fundraising marketing, and I think we raised 27,000 during our run. We got booted by the Humane Society in town, and they actually went on and won the tournament. But it kind of really piqued my interest on what is possible with fundraising marketing.
Absolutely. And it sounds like it was a lot of fun as well, like something that
Yeah,
you enjoy doing it too. So that's important because I'm a
yeah,
creative at heart. So anytime you say money, I'm like, okay, got it. Don't go over $47,000. Okay, got
right,
it.
right, right.
Perfect. Now, give an example of how nonprofits can prepare even now for Giving Tuesday, very national
hmm
campaigns like Giving Tuesday.
I love this question because even though it's January, you really need to start thinking about Giving Tuesday here at the end of November. I cringe when I get calls from clients on October 1 saying, we need to come up with a Giving Tuesday plan. So your timing is so perfect with this. And it's really fundraising marketing in its basics is not different than any other marketing campaign or approach. It's about building brand loyalty and building engagement. And you've got to lay that groundwork now so that when you make the ask on Giving Tuesday, people feel comfortable with you. They know who you are and they're willing to make a gift. So there's so many ways you can do that. I mean, we're doing it, in B2B or B2C marketing. We're telling stories, brand stories. For a nonprofit, that means talking about the people that you serve or the animals that you serve or whatever your mission is, really talking about that. And then on the other side of it, what are those good donor stories that, why was someone moved to give to your organization in the past? Are there donors that you can prop up at this time, tell their story, share why they have an affinity to the organization? And by doing that over the next 9, 10, 11 months, you're really going to start to lay the groundwork so that people aren't surprised on Giving Tuesday in November that you're making an ask and asking them to make a gift to the organization.
Yeah, that's super important because I mean, not even just Giving Tuesday, just the generic
Absolutely.
November, December, all of those. Cyber Monday too, as
Mhm.
well. Just you gotta have a plan, and you gotta plan it in way in advance. And
Right,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Now, what are three tips aside from planning ahead and
Mhm.
knowing your audience? Maybe you give three more tips to keep in mind if no one got anything else from the conversation that they want to keep in mind when fundraising for their nonprofit.
Yeah, so probably the first conversation I have when I'm talking with a client is, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to go into fundraising marketing? I mean, right now a lot of organizations are prepping for their giving days. It's very common for organizations to have their own giving days in this like winter spring time, and then they have Giving Tuesday in November. And so one thing I say is from a fundraising marketing or even a digital fundraising standpoint is, are you all in? Because if you're not, it's gonna donors are gonna notice that. And we can't have this start and stop approach to our content, to our storytelling. You really need to have a unified approach that it happens all year. And so that's a conversation that I have a lot of, do you have the resources? Are you prepared to use those resources? And really thinking through um, what the time commitment is. I mean, I've had clients that want to do a giving day, and then 3 weeks later, they want to have their biggest fundraising event of the year. And it's like, you're really being pulled in different directions. And so I think it takes a lot of time to sit down and have some soul searching of, can you put the time and energy into this? And I think where that comes from is really just 10 years ago, digital fundraising was an afterthought for a lot of fundraisers. It was still bubbling up. Giving Tuesday was happening, but not everyone was involved. And it was kind of one of those of, oh, the week of Thanksgiving, yeah, we can put something on of, make a gift to us on Giving Tuesday. And I think some people are still in that mindset of, yeah, we'll just throw something together, at the last minute on Giving Tuesday, and it's not working anymore because other organizations are really just blowing right past them on creative content, unique content that they're using for their fundraising. And so um, it's a hard conversation to have with nonprofit professionals because they are being pulled in a million directions. And how do you add one more thing on the list that for a lot of these organizations are untested? Of can they really raise money in a digital space? So that's number one conversation that I have. The next thing that I talk a lot about is the marketing tools in your toolbox are no different whether you're fundraising or doing something else, trying to promote something else. So we're still going to use the same tools. You're still going to use your social media. You still need to be telling good unique stories about your organization. You can still be using social ads. I love using social ads for fundraising. I kind of live in the school of thought of you got to spend little bit of money to make some money, and so um, that's it's this weird thing when you start talking about fundraising marketing that people think like, oh well, we can only send on an email. And it's we have a whole toolbox that we can use. And we just need to get creative around it because yes, it is a little bit different when you're asking for money than maybe you're asking for someone to sign up for an event or something like that. So that's the other thing that I talk about. And um, you know, lastly, the other thing that I like to share with people when I'm in these types of conversations is you really need to look at marketing as your air coverage. I had a colleague say that one time many years ago is marketing is the air coverage to fundraising. So you have your fundraisers, your relationship builders within your organization, and they're the ones actually going out and talking with donors one on one and building those relationships. And whether it be a multi-million dollar donor or maybe a lower scale donor, you have those people that are actually going out and doing that. And so when you have a giving day or a major, capital campaign or comprehensive campaign, the marketing tools that I just spoke about, that's really the air coverage for the conversations that those fundraisers are having. So I've had a conversation with a development director about an organization, and then, I walk out of the meeting and I open up Facebook and there's a really good story about that organization. So the two need to work together to approach this. And um, it, it sound I know I'm saying it as like, oh, it's no big deal. This is just really easy. Just do this. But I think it takes a lot of soul searching and thinking through and really deciding if you can do it. And I know that all these organizations can. They can do it. I've worked with a lot of organizations that, sometimes it's like, "Oof, I don't know if we're going to make this happen," and then it happens. And so, probably if I had a bonus key to suggest is do your soul searching. Really decide that this is something that you can do as an individual, as a professional, in your position, and then also as an organization, and then also just jump jump in feet first, and try it because why not?
I love that. Yeah, and I'm glad you did talk about just some of the resources. And I think I agree from my experience working with nonprofits. Um, if they're new to the nonprofit world, like they're just doing it because they're passionate about it,
Mhm.
they're afraid of ads. They're
Yeah,
afraid to
yeah.
spend money. And I'm like, okay, but that's really how it works. I mean, how did you get your house, your car? You have to spend money
Mhm,
in order to be able to use it. And so what for those who are probably listening thinking, but like I literally don't think I have the resources right now. Like what else can I do? So what are a couple of your favorite organic or in somewhat free marketing tools that you
mhm,
would encourage nonprofits to start off with
mhm.
using?
Yeah, so your email list, number 1. I mean, we use this in, whether I'm talking to a small business or a larger corporation or whatnot. I mean, email your email list is still your direct channel to your audiences. Now I know there's some conversation in the marketing industry of like, does email even really work anymore because people's inboxes are so overcrowded? But I think that goes back to brand loyalty and engagement and creating good content so that when your organization's email shows up in my inbox, I don't hesitate to open it. So laying that groundwork and then getting the word out through your email list. I mean, and doing it thoughtfully. And so that's always number 1. Social media is always great. I love social media from an organic standpoint because you can really tell your story. And it's funny of how many features are now available just on one platform, on just on Facebook or just on Instagram that you can use. That when I started this 10 plus years ago, it was just post and a picture or maybe a video, and it's so different now. Um,
With
so yeah,
dancing reels.
right, right. Yeah, like you can use Reels now, and I mean it's changing all the time. And so yeah, Facebook and social media are the big ones that I use from a digital fundraising, but I also don't shove aside, more traditional. Maybe there's a place to do a direct mail or a postcard or something. Um, I know higher education institutions get really unique with their giving days of sending stuff um, to their donors. One that I heard about a couple years ago, they sent one sock to their donor list, each person on their donor list, and it was a sock for the college. And when you made a gift, you got that second sock, so then you had your pair. But what a unique way to use, traditional marketing channels. Because if I'm getting a single sock in the mail, I mean, you better believe that I'm gonna take a look and see what that's all about.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah, and the nonprofit that I work with before I kind of also became like their social media chair or social media head, was using direct marketing. They had postcards that they send every year, and the only thing with that, it would say what year it was. So if it were
Mhm.
2015, it would say, volunteer with us in 2015. And so the only thing I've tried to, encourage them would, make it evergreen, make it
Mhm.
it's like remove the year so that people can, volunteer with you any year.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's if it works for you, and depending on, where you live, and depending on your love or hate of social media, direct marketing or digital marketing is both of them can be go-tos.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all comes back to no matter what type of marketing you're doing, it's knowing your audiences. And that's the foundation for any campaign. You may have an audience that loves direct mail, and that's how you need to engage with them. So yeah, go with direct mail. Um, so
Yeah. Now we're talking so much about marketing, and I'm sure the listeners are like, "How does she know so much? I know she's been doing it for 10 years and stuff, but how does she know so much?" So talk about your experience with a full circle experience with Butler University,
mhm. Yeah, so I worked after I left the Boy Scouts, and spent my time there.
the Boy Scouts,
I
not the Girl
Yep.
Scouts.
Yes, the Boy Scouts. So after I left the Scouts, I decided my time there was done and was looking for a new challenge. I went to Butler University here in Indianapolis. I am a graduate of Butler, so I was very happy to accept a position there. And my role there was I was in the marketing department, but my client was the university advancement, the fundraising arm of the university. And they were getting ready to launch a comprehensive campaign, a $250 million comprehensive campaign that launched in 2019. So my role was to really assist the university advancement team on embedding marketing strategies and tactics, so that we could get the donors prepared for that campaign and when we would be making those major asks for the campaign. So I was there for about 2 years and kind of worked in the kind of the beginning stages, and then left in fall of 19 right after the campaign kicked off. And I check in on it every once in a while, and it looks like it's doing pretty good. And sometimes I like to give myself a pat on the back of like maybe all of my pre-planning like helped add to that. But yeah, higher education is a really unique industry marketing wise. And so it was a very good learning experience while I was there.
Yeah, and we should definitely give you a pat on the back again, because as women don't do that enough. We don't give ourselves a pat on the back. So yay, yay for you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Now we're coming to the end of the conversation, and there's a few fun questions that I love to ask my audience. Are you ready?
Of course, let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, so where do you want to travel to next?
Um, does it have to be in the US
Nope.
or anywhere? Um, well, it's very cold in Indiana right now, so I've been dreaming about somewhere warm. And I've been thinking a lot about Turks and Caicos for some reason. It just keeps coming to my mind. So, out of the US, probably Turks and Caicos. I love the culture of island life and how unique it is. I mean, growing up in the Midwest, island life is very far from Indiana, so it's very unique. But then, in the US, my husband and I love New Orleans. We love that town. We visited there a few years ago, and I think it is continues to be the number one spot on our go back to list. So I think we're going to be making a trip to New Orleans here again very soon.
I love it. Yeah, it's full of culture, always
Yes,
lively.
yes, absolutely.
Love it. Now, the next question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
um, wow, that's a heavy question. um, when I think about my legacy, I don't think so much from a professional or a business standpoint. Like, I want to create this huge agency, or I want to, have my name everywhere or something. From my experience being in a toxic workplace and what happened as I transitioned out, I really want my legacy to be that I treated people well and I treated people fair. And, when I walk out of a room, I want people to think, she treated me well or she treated me fair. And that's something that I think about a lot is I don't want my legacy to be negative when it comes to how I treat people. And I always want to be kind and friendly. Um, and, sometimes that's hard when you're in, a stressful situation. I mean, think about, life now in a pandemic or whatever. It's hard sometimes to always put a smile on your face, but that is something that I think about a lot when I'm interacting with people and then once I leave them.
Perfect. I love that. And kindness definitely goes a long way.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So, for those who want to either learn more about you or they want to partner with you with growing their nonprofit, where can they find you on the web?
So, my website is evergreenstrategic.org. That's where you can find me on my website. I'm a big LinkedIn person, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. I love chatting with people on there. And I would love to chat with you, whether it's about marketing or you need support in your organization, or just want to chit chat about New Orleans. I'm all for it.
I love it. Then I'm going to put it in the show notes. And if you're watching on the social media, it's also at the bottom as well to connect with Emily online. And if no one got anything else from this conversation, what is one thing that you want to share?
I think going back to my bonus key point is just try it. Just try fundraising marketing. You're going to learn a little bit each time. And everyone had to start somewhere. So, really do that soul searching, but then jump feet first in and just go for it.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Emily, for being a guest on the See Life Different podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I had such a great time.